talk to you this morning what I think are important facts to know about human milk, why we use it in premature infants, why we should all use only human milk to feed premature babies, despite the fact that providing human milk for all premature babies takes an enormous effort. It's much easier to feed formula than human milk. Here is an outline of what I will tell you. I will remind you that premature babies derive the same benefits that all babies derive, that all term babies. And that is, as you all know, the reason why we recommend breastfeeding for all babies. In addition, premature babies derive special benefits from human milk. And they're very important, strong benefits. And we'll talk about those. Then I'll talk briefly about donor milk, because it is essential that we have donor milk, to be able to use donor milk in situations when the mother's milk is not available. And then finally, I'll talk about fortification and the continuing problems that we have in fortifying adequately human milk. So, the premature infant, for the premature infant, and this is how I look at human milk. It is a strong medicine, an important and strong medicine that also contains some nutrients, but inadequate amounts of nutrients for the premature infant. Hence, our need to fortify. So look at it primarily as medicine, not as a food. As a food, it is not very good. Okay, no, it's not working. Maybe I have. Okay, all infants derive benefits, and I've just made a list here of the most important ones. This applies to all infants, not just premature infants. They are protected by breastfeeding against acute otitis media, and this is all the proven benefits, not just the alleged. It's the proven benefits. Gastroenteritis, severe lower respiratory tract infection, that's pneumonia, atopic dermatitis, and sudden infant death. These are proven protective effects of breastfeeding for all infants. Now here I have put together in several slides what we know about the components of human milk that are present in human milk but not in formula. In most cases we cannot connect, for instance, the presence of hormones to specific benefits that the baby derives. And so there's sort of a disconnect. We know many things that are in breast milk that we think do good things, but we can't link the two together. And that's true for the hormones, growth factors. For the anti-inflammatory substances, antimicrobial substances, and modulators of immune functions, collectively, we think they are responsible for the protection against infections. But we can't point to individual components. But I'll give you one exception later on, and those are the oligosaccharides, which we believe are the substances that protect babies against NEC. And finally, there are enzymes, and I'll tell you briefly about those. Here is a list of hormones that are found in breast milk. Prolactin is found, IGF-1 is found, calcitonin is found. Thyroid hormones are found in considerable amounts, so much that a baby that is born without a thyroid gland is partially protected against the effect of hypothyroidism. That's how much thyroid hormone is present in human milk. There's cortisol, there's prostaglandins, there are gut hormones. And we can't point to specific benefits for these, but they're all there. Then there are enzymes present, and there are actually dozens of enzymes which we think are just in milk because the mammary gland hasn't bothered to keep them out. But there are some enzymes where we're quite sure they have functional significance, and the lipases are at the most important of those. There's 2 lipases, and the bile salt stimulated lipase we think is the more important because it is capable of digesting, hydrolyzing the triglycerides to a considerable extent. And if you wait long enough, the lipase is completely able to... Too fast? Oh. No translation? I can't hear.
From the taxis that are calling through my ear. You have to change the mic.
You don't have to translate those? What's the problem?
El micrófono es no.
Use that? Can you hear me? Yes. She was hearing all the conversation of the taxi radio dispatches. So where were we? I was talking about the lipases. And in premature infants, the significance of the lipases in donor milk. In donor milk, the heat treatment of the milk inactivates the lipase. And so the babies who receive donor milk don't have the benefit of the lipase. And there is a slight, maybe significant decrease in fat absorption due to the inactivation of the lipase. How significant that is, I don't think anyone has a good feel, but there are efforts underway to make lipase available so we can add it back to heat-treated donor milk. Amylase is not important because this is a starch-digesting enzyme, because premature infants don't receive starch. And the other enzymes, proteases, we don't know whether they're important, but lysozyme is part of the anti-infectious components of milk, and that's an important enzyme. Here I've made a list of the anti-infective components of human milk. I've listed cells here, and we already talked about cells yesterday. Cells have a limited lifespan, and certainly in donor milk all cells are killed. How important the cells are in the immune defense of the infant, we really don't know. There are experiments that suggest, animal experiments, that they're very important. Other experiments suggest that they're not important. Lactoferrin, we have not talked. Lactoferrin binds iron, and it's an important part of the anti-infectious components. It has, as far as I know, very little to do with iron absorption. And then there are the oligosaccharides, and I'll talk more about them. They're, I think, one of the more important components. There are fatty acids and monoglycerides that have antibacterial effects. And then there is secretory IgA. That's IgA that the mother produces that gets into the breast milk and is directed against specific pathogens that the mother has experienced. So this is part of the adaptive immune system. Okay, the one view that immunologists now tell us is that the breast milk should be looked at as a complement to the baby's immature immune system. So it complements the baby's immune system until the baby's immune system reaches maturity. And so human milk can be looked at as a part of the baby's immune defense system. So not giving that portion makes the baby more susceptible to infections. Here is a diagram trying to show all the protective agents in human milk, and this diagram divides it up into the adaptive immune system, and I already mentioned the IgA, secretory IgA, and the more important, I'm quite convinced, is the innate immune system. And here we have all kinds of substances that we already mentioned, and then the most important one, I think, for premature babies are the cell receptor homologs, the glycans, which is part of the oligosaccharides. You notice I'm trying to manage 3 objects with 2 hands. The human milk oligosaccharides, there's about 200 that have been identified. They're complicated chemically. They're all derived from lactose by adding on various components, elongating the chains. They're either fucosylated or sialylated. And they turn out to be homologs of blood group antigens. And these blood group antigens are also present on the intestinal cells, and hence the significance of these substances. And I put some more about the chemistry on here. The composition of the oligosaccharides and the concentration in mother's milk change in the course of lactation. The effects of the oligosaccharides, they are anti-infectious, and we'll talk more about this in a minute. They inhibit the binding of pathogens to the intestinal cells. That's in essence what they do. They also act in an inflammatory capacity. There are other anti-inflammatory substances in breast milk, but the oligosaccharides are an important part of the anti-inflammatory effect. And they act as prebiotics. That is, they favor certain bacteria in the gut and disfavor others. Okay, so very important effects of these oligosaccharides. Okay. Need to point. Okay, here is a diagram trying to show what the this diagram shows what a norovirus comes in and attaches to these receptors, which are in many cases analogs of the blood group antigens. If a baby receives breast milk, then the similar glycan is present in the milk, and that glycan binds to the virus in this case and prevents the virus from attaching itself to the intestinal cells. Hence the antiviral effect of oligosaccharides. An important fact, which I think is an important effect that I haven't mentioned yet is in donor milk, the oligosaccharides are one of the things that are not affected by the heat treatment. So donor milk has unchanged normal oligosaccharide concentrations. Contrary to many other substances which are diminished by heat treatment, oligosaccharides are not diminished. Here I have a list of the long-term benefits, and again I'm going back to all infants, full-term infants. These are the demonstrated long-term effects. It protects against asthma, it protects against obesity, even though there is now newer information that challenges the findings that breastfeeding protects against obesity. The newer thought is that the protective effect is due to confounders, that the mothers of breastfed babies are more health conscious and protect the baby against obesity later on. But we don't know yet for sure about that. Diabetes type 1 and 2, that's true and that's confirmed. Childhood leukemia, there are several studies that just show that there is a protective effect. Cardiovascular risk factors, cholesterol and blood pressure are lower in adults who have been breastfed. And then we have listed here intelligence, and that's another one where we used to say, yes, breastfeeding gives the baby an extra 2.3 or 3 IQ points. Now there is newer research that shows that if you correct for the mother's intelligence by measuring the mother's IQ, then the breastfeeding effect goes away. In other words, what we measure as an advantage of in IQ for formerly breastfed babies is all due to the fact that the breastfed babies had more intelligent mothers. And the argument or the findings in the obesity area are somewhat along the same line. So I put it in parentheses here. I think the final word hasn't been spoken about this, but it looks like breastfed babies, we cannot claim that breastfeeding makes babies more intelligent. So now, coming back to the premature baby, the special health benefits of human milk for the premature infant, there are special short-term benefits, and they are most importantly in the anti-infectious group, but breast milk also has important effects on the gastrointestinal tract, which make human milk a valuable asset in feeding premature babies. The anti-infectious, I've listed here, The general notion is that the premature baby's immune system is particularly immature, more immature than the term babies, and that because of that, the complementation by human milk is particularly important to premature infants. The oligosaccharides that I already mentioned are thought to be an important part of it and are not diminished